if I had a chance to start all over again and back to the age of 16, here's everything I wish I knew. First that would come into my mind is simply just getting the education and reading books. Because what of a knowledge could build up is what you would see in this world. Simply based off the knowledge you get, the type of value you receive, that's what that's what shaped your world technically. And even just back in like maybe age 10 or so, around middle school time, I never thought of reading book was that important until I began to build up this habit just recently, which I knew was so late. But the power of book and reading and getting educated, such as listening so much from entrepreneurial person or getting network to meet different people, you learn much more, and it's better for you to avoid those mistakes and gain so much more experience, because by speaking to someone or reading someone's book, they condense so much of their knowledge and value that they put into the book over time of their life, such as maybe 10 year or 20 year, that you are able to consume it with short amount of time, in such as a month if you were able to finish a book. And some of the key book that really changed my life when I first began to reading was simply Rich Dad Poor Dad and the Steve Jobs and maybe Elon Musk book, which I'm recently getting starting to it. And I realized it is a bit late. And another book that I can't forget is by Gary Vee, Day Trading Attention, like recently newer. All of those books is the type of book that provides me value that I simply think, after consuming so much of their content and understanding so much value they have provided in this world, I think in their book is very condensed, where you could learn far more than what you would learn personally from them. Because hear me out, sometimes a person may not express something real good by verbally or virtually or anything, but throughout writing, the author could write out everything about that person from a different perspective, as well as how the person would describe it, because a good writer could clearly, detailedly tells you something that have a deeper meaning inside of their writing. And you could just learn above the level of what you would normally receive by talking to them. Because just imagine if you were having a chance and opportunity to talk to Elon Musk, but without any sense of knowledge, value, or anything you could provide, you won't understand what he was trying to explain or what he would meant for you. Because oftentimes when someone is at a whole new different level, what you guys are talking about is complete different. And believe it or not, by the age of 16, don't think you will be on top of the world, because oftenly there's much more people above you, better than you, more experienced than you. Like, just don't have that ego that is so high. Stay humble. And with education, I think I would avoid so much more mistake that I made throughout my life. But regardless of decision, anything is lead to bad thing or a good thing. But at the end of the day, as long as you know how to react to it, it's far more important than doing the right thing. Because you could do something wrong, but if your reaction was good enough, you could actually recover from that mistake and eventually bypass it. And then finally learn from it and then grow from it as well. And in terms of education, there is so much way you can educate yourself. If you're really desire and wanting to get into learning something such as running business, being entrepreneurial, or getting into some sort of scientific physics stuff, like it's like a whole new library nowadays. You got the internet access, you got anything, you could find anything legitimately for free. Without a doubt, anything you want, you could get it and consume it. Especially with AI nowadays, you get gather around so much data way faster and put you on a whole new level. And there's just so much opportunity laying there that you don't even want to miss out by simply not educating yourself and not following by any trend that is recently upcoming. And another case was, at first I did not even thought of going to college. I was going to be a high school dropout, because I thought at that time I was making some little money. I thought I was so high. I thought that was everything, and the world wouldn't be as big as I would thought it would be, until I got to a whole new places. I got to the college and I recognized and realized there's people that's way better than you that you just probably never get to interact, because you're in such a small circle that you're in, that you're on top of that food chain already. I'll say, if you're the predator at that food chain, you never know what you are on the next food chain that you go up to, which is a whole new ecosystem. Which, for example, if you move from a small town to a huge university, you might be Mr. Nobody or missing nobody, because there is just so much people that might be far more better than you that you just never had the opportunity to meet them, simply because the circle you're in, or geographically the location you're in, there's no way you meet them. And by simply educating yourself, it's the best way for you to have the same conversation in between them. Because simply, I know that for a fact, if you are just basically have a simple mindset of regular life, you just been going to school and learn whatever the school taught you, and you're talking to someone that had so much exploration outside the school and had more experience in this world, like there's not any conversation together which lead to no connection at all, which eventually you might miss out a lot of opportunity that is laying there on the table. And the next, I wish I knew, like legitimately, I knew the other side of risk taking. Like everything I know is always you win and someone lose. It's all about equilibrium. And whenever there's risk taking, there's always some sort of risk. But it matters to the fact that how you can react to the risk and how tolerant you are with the risk. And oftentimes I just keep overthinking the part where I know there will be risk, but I kind of underestimate it. Oftentimes, there are risks that are way bigger than you could even imagine just by simply learning the way to invest. So, at the age of 17, I began to learn and then started paper trading, which is you're not trading with physical money, but you're still trading in the stock market. It's just a simulation way. However, throughout that process, I was underestimating all the risk because maybe I was just in there for such a good time during the market. I was making a lot of money, I think, that really just brought up my ego as well. And once again, like I mentioned, the ego is so important because I simply think that I was on top of the world making that's a little bit of cash, and with what I was doing, everything was correct. And trust me, when you're going on the right track, you think like everything you're doing is right, but guess what? It's not how it is, because sometimes when you think something is so bad, it's not actually as bad as it is. Or sometimes you think certain thing is so good, it's not as good as it is either. So when making the simple mistake of investing, I really thought it like there's no fail. Like you make money there as long as you hold it as long as possible. But eventually it turned out that I didn't learn about the risk side and as well as the emotion no control side, because oftentimes you make mistake by emotion. And so even in sales, when you sell stuff or talk to client or customer, you get them emotion and they make an emotional decision rather than when their mind are clear, they wouldn't make as much mistake. So I simply underestimated the risk that was on the other end. I thought that there's no way you can lose money just simply because I was in a good. And sometimes lucks come into investing as well, because oftentimes you gotta know luck takes part of the deal. And simply without luck, you're not making anything. But with too much luck, you're gonna think that you're always right. And the next time one fail, simply one mistake, one time you fail, you're done for life, and nearly it's so hard to fight it back. And believe it or not, if you don't understand the other side of the risk, don't take the risk. Don't take what you're capable of handling, because when you're trying to leverage and gain much more, and yes, it feels good definitely when you're gaining more with leverage, but if you don't understand the risk side, like what it could happen leading to you, maybe it could lead to your family losing everything, all the assets, everything you got, or simply putting you into such a bad position where you could have like a position. And I often heard of story where wealthy people, like their children, their son, like you're wealthy, but somehow their kids wanted to make it all over, start off with the entrepreneur and then grow out a business by themselves. But that's often what happened. It leads to all the negative stuff because they don't know the risk side, because they simply are born in a golden shell and they're got everything handed to them directly, and they never been through the process of earning that check or earning that money, and they simply just start off the business with the money that they are provided. Then they wouldn't even think of the risk side, because they would think of, oh, my parent got all the money to me if I ever lose it all, or in different way they think they could gain the money back and simply just have infinite amount of opportunity and tries to do the thing over. In some case you might do because you're just so wealthy, but in most cases, regular common people in this world, it's very rare to make it out of it without understanding the risk side of the other event that you're doing. And by simply understanding the other side of the risk, I think I would have put myself at least 5 years forward in life rather than struggling and learning all the unnecessary stuff or doing all the unnecessary stuff by putting out so much time of my own and missing out all the different opportunity when I could have took those opportunity and move on to the next level. And like I once again said, that also leads back to educating myself and reading books, because I simply jumped into investing in the industry thinking that it's a lot of money, it's a lot of gold that you make around, that is easy money, ASAP, instantly, and within few seconds. Without educating myself, I went in with a gambling mindset, which is lead me into a very, very bad decision every single time when I face the market and when I see things change, which is why it is so important. You got to build up an emotional control as well as get educating, because what you are earning is what your knowledge is. You earn off of your knowledge. Whatever you know, you're going to earn it off of that. However, if you earn money that is outside of your knowledge, outside of what you know, trust me, you're going to lose it by luck, by an accident. Anything could happen to it, because what it belongs to you regardless of fact. And just simply having the patience with the risk on the other end, if you know the thing will come to you, it will. It's just a matter of it might take a while or it take longer. But if you want it fast and you're there without understanding the risk of the other end, trust me, you will fall into a deep trap and it will be hard to get back out of it. And coming with that along my mind, I think it's so important that something I wish I knew again back in the age of 16 is having a macro point of view at a lot of things and having a master plan itself. Simply knowing the fact that if I get everything planned out, I know what I needed to do, my plan A, plan C, plan B, and then what it will take for this path to go from point A to point B, my life will be so much more smoother. And I wish that I just had more planning, such as simply reflecting daily, meditation, and going over the stuff that is really most important, and focus on things that is more important than other, and put aside the stuff that isn't as important, because some of the tasks is not necessary to do until it's the right time. But sometimes you just don't know when is the right time to do the task. So we eventually make some mistake, but it happened. But when we make mistake, we have to look at it from a macro point of view sometimes, because if you look at a timeline of your whole entire life or your next 10 year, 20 year, 30 year, there's so much more time for you to make it back. And simply one day of a mistake won't lead to reckless day of losing or making more mistake. So you simply have to look at stuff from a macro mindset and having a master plan. Just because I failed a test today, for example, in school, I failed my test today, but then I look forward. I have a whole school year to go on. I have a couple more years before I could graduate. Why should failing this one test want me to give up my whole entire thought and career on continuing my education in school or in whichever thing that you're doing in, or in business? All because you failed at one time doesn't mean you can't start up again. You always have time and opportunity, and it's a matter of fact, the risk, as long as you're willing to take it, and you will make it in time. Because a lot of time we're underestimating the power of compound effect, as well as being patient and waiting out the whole entire process, and essentially looking at the whole entire plan in a master macro point of view, where even if we fail one small time, we still got 1,000 millions of time to try, until all we need is just one time to be successful, and we might be set for life with that just one opportunity. However, you gotta be ready when the opportunity comes, because you don't know when is the opportunity come to you. And matter of fact, you just gotta stay prepared and be ready and go engage in every single opportunity you see. And one of them might just actually land, and bingo, you might just hit the jackpot. And oftentimes we gotta have small plan along with these big plan, because small action and small plan build up to the macro plan. And I often think we just kind of miss out where we look at stuff in a macro point of view, where the plan might just take years and years in order to develop, in order to be in shape. So oftentimes I would make mistake by trying to rush the process, rush the plan, trying to get it back done in time, such as if I made a mistake, I was thinking if I could recover that mistake in a certain amount of time in a so short of a period where my ability is not even capable of, and which is lead to an even worse and bigger mistake. Because when having a master plan, even you make a one small mistake, you know that where could go, because you know the process. A small mistake is proper process in order to learn from that mistake and then grow from it. Because the faster you fail, the more time you fail, you're gonna learning so much more. And because you know, you wouldn't just simply give up on that, because you know the point of view of the plan, you will eventually make it. It just take time, it just take ups and downs for you. But at the end of the day, they're all part of the experience, because without these experience, it won't shape the person you are eventually when you're making it to the top. And the next key I wish I knew was like literally the most reflection. Because we often just keep constantly perpetual on a perpetual race, moving forward every day, doing what we need to do, such as going to school from certain time to time, go home, do the homework, complete the task. But we never have time to slow down and then actually look back in our timeline and then look at ourselves and then actually have some reflection on the action that we take, on things that we've been through, or maybe stuff that we might predict might happen in the future. Because simply having self-reflection, you kind of, it's like your bank account balance. If you have self-reflection, you automatically will go check your bank account balance every once in a while, so you make sure the amount of money you have, the how much you spend, and how much you need to save, and how much you need to put aside for investing. And when having self-reflection is simply just slowing down the pace of your life and then focus on the current moment and then look back on stuff that maybe you could have done better, you could have improved, and maybe you make your life more efficient with that way. So I simply did not do any reflection, meditation, or just rewind thinking, because I thought that we just got to keep going forward, move at pace. However, I realized after I actually sit down sometime, I spend some time maybe during the night, during the day, in the morning, or in the afternoon, I just simply sit down, no phone, no nothing. I just cancel out literally every event that I have and just have a peacefulness of mind and simply rewind and think of what I need to improve and what I have done, maybe that I could have done better, or maybe that could have been so much more event that I missed out or opportunity that I missed out I could have taken care of. And by the time age of 18, I begin start doing self-reflection and I want to take responsibility of everything around me and everything I got, which why I think self-reflection was so important, because I begin to see the mistake I made early on, way before the age of 16, and why a certain thing happened in this way because of what I've done. So like with reflection, you could kind of out the next couple years of your life. And oftentimes when you look back at things, that's like tracking a data or a record, because if you make a mistake one day, you might have just got over it and then forgot about it and moved on. But that mistake might happen over again. But if a mistake happened more than 3 times, honestly, that should be a strike for you automatically, my man. Because the worst thing could ever happen is just repeatedly making mistake over that you never reflect to, and it's just eventually leading you to a downhill trend. And that's why it is so much more important that I combine all the points from previously, where you have to educate yourself constantly, because in order to work forward and then move forward, you have to have a curiosity. You got to keep learning and then keep on a pace that you're moving forward. However, throughout that process, you got to be able to digest what you learn, because you can't be just always consuming like a sponge. Eventually, you're going to have to squeeze out some water and then get some new one into the sponge, because oftentimes your brain is kind of like a fish tank, I'll say. If you keep filling water, it's going to eventually overload and then just spill, which is worse than worst case you could have is just constantly moving forward, which I often see people, they're stuck in a situation and they're stuck in a cycle because they're going over. People often call it the rat race, because you simply never reflect on yourself and you never went back to look at stuff that you need to improve on and think that might have been so important that could have changed your life in a certain way. And you might have just never thought about it because you never reflect on it. Or there could have been opportunity you missed out that might have appeared again and you didn't even reflect, so you missed it once again. And life isn't that long, but it isn't too short either. And simply just reflecting weekly, starting off simple by maybe monthly, weekly, and eventually down to daily, or even better, after every single huge event that you do. But don't get me wrong here, my friend. It's often important you reflect, but don't get stuck in that situation for too long, because you're gonna be eventually lead to depression if you're just overthinking that thing. It's gonna causes you many time trouble, such as building up the risk where you just afraid to do that thing again if that was led to a huge mistake that you've done. And with self-reflection, you could do it in such a format, many ways, such as I do it. I like to keep it in a virtual way because I just like to speak it out and then get it over with. But if you're like a person that like to write or type it out, go ahead and do that and document it in your phone or your notes, because essentially you look back a couple months later. I look back stuff I wrote like few months. It might not sound foolish or even just funny because it probably makes sense at the time when I was writing it. But as I was learning more and my knowledge and value building up, I look back to it, it completely didn't make sense at all. Like, why would I think that way? So simply every time you're having self-reflection, it's a way to improve and then get to the next level. And don't ever underestimate the power of reflection, because if you know how to reflect on yourself, You know how to reflect on many other stuff that happened in your life. And sometimes a mistake happened over again, which leads you to your life going downtrend and you think everything is so negative. But by simply having self-reflection, you go back and you rewind to that mistake and you're actually finding the true cause, the root cause and the root problem of this and solving it from there, which essentially help you develop more skill, more value, and eliminate that negativity. Like now, often people might say, why you need to do so much self-reflection if your life's gonna move forward and stuff is already happening. But here's what I think. Like we constantly move forward in this perpetual world like the world because you make a mistake. However, we could learn so much more from a mistake by looking back at it and learning from it. Because everything leads to opportunity laying on the table. And oftentimes you don't want to reflect, you don't want to go back to that mistake because you just want to avoid it. And trust me, when it come back up again, you're going to keep avoiding it for life, or are you going to essentially go attack and then engage in this issue and then solve it, which often I see such as in sales. If people isn't making any sales, they still don't want to get outside of their comfort zone. They don't want to make any action. They don't want to take any uncomfortable decision. Maybe some decision might have just changed your life simply by being uncomfortable or by being pushing yourself for an extra mile. So at the end of the day, it's far more important when doing your stuff is to reflect, and which why there is such a thing like data, insight, feedback, because you learn directly from the stuff that you receive and you learn from it. And the next and most, I would say probably maybe like top 3 in this case, is to learn to control your emotion. I've seen so much more mistake that we humanly make and anyone make because it's an emotional decision. Oftentimes we buy the stuff because we get emotional. Oftentimes we make a mistake because we get emotional. Oftentimes we rush the process and not following the plan that we had because we got emotional. So all of these things are lead to emotional, which why EQ are also one of the important factor in your life. Because with every decision you make and every action you take, emotional take at least 50% of it, I bet. And some people are just mentally not ready for being the emotional side of the thing because oftentimes things could lead to sadness, depression, or even happiness. And here's the one word I once heard before that is real great is when you're hungry, don't go to the grocery store because you're just gonna grab whichever you see. Like when you're desperate, you're gonna get whatever you get because you feel like you're down so bad. Like anything you receive is a positive and it's great way. But sometimes that might have just lead to a negative decision because you truly don't need it. But then your emotional tells you that, oh, you wanted this because you've been missing out every opportunity. You think this could be the next one. This could be the next jackpot you hit. And which would lead to eventually bigger mistake. And that's why casino makes so much money. If you simply walk in a casino and you see why they got all these girls, all these flashy lights, all these drinks that they offer you for free, because they're trying to get you into the phrase where you lose your emotional control, where you just begin to take action based off your emotional because of probably want so much money. Now you feel like you're the top of the world. You got that high ego. You got that. You don't lose all the patience and you just want to go all in and shove it and then win it big and go big. But oftentimes that's what happens. It leads to you going home instead. And all of these traps, such as in marketing and sales, what people do, they sell you emotion. What people truly sell isn't the product itself, it's the emotion. And which is why after reading the book from Steve Jobs, it say think different. Because oftentimes he's not looking to make product to make a lot of money, but rather making changes in life and differences. And because simply the products lead to emotional effective, people will often buy the product. You don't buy Apple because of how good it is or whatever. It's because everyone is using it around you and it's efficient than you think. So simply it leads to this effect where you see your bros, your parents, or anyone around you using an iPhone, you will essentially want to join them. And that's one of the part of the emotion because you don't want to be left out. You don't want to be the only one standing alone. And oftentimes, if you were in a down bad situation where you don't got much money, you honestly don't even need an iPhone. You should just get a simple phone until you fight off the situation. When you move on to a better situation, then you get that phone. But oftentimes with emotional, such as everyone around you use it and they encourage you to be like, look at my new phone, look at this and that. And you're going to essentially fall into the emotional trap too. And you're going to eventually maybe using some sort of credit, getting a loan, or maybe just paying the phone when you didn't even need a upgrade at all. And which why we're able to learn to control your emotional, every action and decision you take will be far more effective, and you will know the risk behind it way much better. And one of the simple mistakes I make early on, way before, just around the age of 18 or in between, so from 16 to 18, was making a lot of emotional decisions that lead to essentially putting myself in a bad situation where I don't have the ability to maybe fight it back out of it. So at the age of maybe 18 and a half, I'll say I was in a lot of debt, I'll say honestly, because of a bad investment. And I got super emotional every single time because I want to make all that money back in so short amount of time. But I keep falling short and going further, deeper down in this hole where that I see no hopes in. And simply because my emotional side of me just began to control me, I started making decisions that was unnecessary, such as spending like hours of hour at work. Like I put that is like a full-time job nearly. I work nearly 7 days a week trying to make so much more money and then go back into the investing in the market because I thought that like if I could have won this much money at that time, maybe I could have get this much more money back once again. I just needed this opportunity. But every time I lose it because of the emotional control part of me where I either get too greedy or I get too scared about it. And I just didn't have any macro point of view of it where I could have simply had the money in my pocket and then wait till the right opportunity to get that right shot. But rather, I was constantly going out there chasing every single opportunity I think I saw. But guess what? It was just emotional control where, like if I provided, you're hungry, you're gonna grab whatever you see and you're gonna start eating on it. And after all that cases, all that negative stuff happened in the life where I'm in debt, where I'm in huge trouble, spending a lot of time, didn't want to go college, wanted to drop out, I essentially found a mentor, which I later partnered up business with, which is my boss. And I truly appreciated this opportunity because the experience and opportunity, what I learned from my mentor is so much better and so much more than when in the beginning, no one was guiding me. I was just randomly investing and randomly taking out so much job or trying to get everything back because I knew my parents didn't have the greatest education. That's why I didn't want to listen everything to them. But some of the basic lifestyle stuff, I would still listen. But when it comes to like entrepreneurial business, I thought it would be so much better if I could find someone that was like, at least in that field, or someone that actually run business. Because in order to learn something, it's like learning from a professor or your teacher. They should be at least an expert at the thing they're teaching or doing, so they have something to say. And you will actually learn from their experience in a short amount of time, which what the value they provide is far much than you just simply trying out and demonstrating it by yourself. And oftentimes you will fall into a mistake by simply not knowing which direction you're going and just randomly testing out thing and just lead to the sad part. So which why I think it's so important to find a mentor as early as possible. And I just wish I knew this at age of 16 because if I were able to find a mentor, I probably would never have a first job ever. I would have just simply put all the saving I have, maybe like it was, I'll say, 4,000. It wasn't much, but at least I could have invested all that money into myself rather than losing it on the market that I think I could have had a higher ROI, which was not even true at all. And trust me, with a mentor, either a she or he, they could lead to so much more value providing it for you. They could guide the direction for you to go, or maybe just giving you some great advice based off their experience. Because oftentimes listening to a mentor is far more important than you taking the action. And in order to take an action and before you even start up anything, it's more important to listen first and then think about it. Because I remember in my early stage, I was often taking action based off emotional without thinking, maybe just reflecting at the thing at all before I even jumped into the boat, which essentially lead to so much bad decision that I took. But later on, after I met my mentor, I would often go chat with the mentor every once in a while, at least once a week. I mean, able to have opportunity to join a business. I was able to make back some money that I lost, but it wasn't the greatest. It was a bit tough as well because oftentimes I didn't have the education, I didn't have the experience. I couldn't understand a lot of stuff my mentor was telling me. So which why I think educating yourself is also important too, because just reading and educating could be another mentor of you. Because now at this stage of my life, I think reading book may be one of the best way for me to learn, and it just brings in a lot of value. And trust me, a mentor want to guide you and take you. They are truly serious about you because they seen the past self. Oftentimes they don't take you because they don't need anything from you. They just saw that you were in their situation, you were struggling, which why they want to help you out and get you out of this, and maybe even eventually brings in more value for the mentor himself or herself, because you can learn a lot more from each other. Like the mentor might have learned from your perspective and your point of view, where how he saw many entrepreneur or smaller people that wanted to make it out of their situation, how they would think. So maybe he could have designed a business that focus and target on people like me that wanted to get out the situation but couldn't find anyone in help with. And I think after meeting my mentor, my learning ability and efficiency grew so much more because I was able to go on the right journey, on the right map, and on the right path, because I just simply understand what the mentor is telling me to do, and I need to put into action myself, and it will lead to great result. But sometimes you gotta be aware of the mentor that you're looking up to, because some of them isn't the greatest. Like I can't 100% guarantee every single mentor in this world are positive or negative, because there's just people out there that you might have not known what their story was and how they are. But oftentimes, if you're lucky enough, you make your decision wisely, you meet your mentor early on in your life, they could guide you so much more farther, and you probably could have achieved way much more. And in fact, if I had a mentor way before 16, I think I could have been growing so much more, learning so much more, and putting myself in a so much better situation and gaining far much knowledge and experience, because my mentor could have provided me so much opportunity that I could have taken, where when I didn't even met him, I didn't even know anything about it. And with that being said, the next thing I wish I knew was learning to spend time alone. And being alone might be a sad thing, and I often just couldn't even take it. Like people want to go around with people together. People want to social life and you want to fun and all this, all that. But such as thing like self-reflection, you need to spend time alone, because you need to isolate yourself from the world maybe one day or so out of the week or a month, so you could simply reflect on yourself and actually go into the deep mindset of thinking. So during my first year in college, I was actually so much more isolated out than I would expect it. I thought first thing going into college, I would be going out there partying, having fun with friends, making friends and meeting so much more new people. In fact, I actually enjoyed the time I being spent alone, because I was able to truly discover myself, what I was really interested in, and learning all the stuff that I missed out many times a long time ago, where I was always around my friend. And I simply jumped out my comfort zone because I was spending time alone. I was actually deeply thinking, why would this actually matter? Why should I even care of what they think of me? And why would it even matter of what they say would affect my decision or my action? Because at the end of the day, my life is my life, right? So simply by spending time alone and reflecting on every single thing I could have think of, I was in such a deep thinking mode, and it also leads to so much creative idea in such a way that I never would have thought of. Because sometimes our time span on thinking of certain stuff is so short, where we get so much distraction around us, like your phone, your friend, people asking you to go out, or eating a dinner together, or doing this activity, doing that. Like sometimes you just need time alone in order to keep your mind clear and then reset yourself so you could move on to the next level. And I promise you this, every single time you go out alone or you spend some time alone, you will learn something from it, because you will start paying attention to so much of the small detail when you spend time alone, where when you're around with your friend, you just oftentimes miss out on those details. So like when I was spending time alone, no one had distraction. I was being in such a good life balance time, where I was able to do certain amount of time of learning and studying, certain amount of time of reflection, and certain amount of time of execution, where I was able to make the plan and then go execute it. Because without the execution, all the plan are just BS. And before the age of 16, obviously, I know it's so much harder to spend time alone, because you're all at home with your parents, and you might have had siblings being around you and just being giggle and telling you this joke, this that, or telling you whatever happened. Like, I mean, belongs family. I think at the end of the day, spending time with family is one of the highest value that you could ever have, because how truthful they are to you. But sometimes you just need to isolate yourself, because If you're constantly living in the same circle over and over again without jumping out of it for once or even think outside the box, your mindset, your thinking will be stuck inside, which lead to less creative idea, less innovation, and less the thing that you could actually pay attention to. And like I said, when I spent time alone, I was actually doing things I truly enjoy because I felt like those time were really just for myself. And for example, you don't have to spend time alone just to learn or study. You could spend time alone by traveling, by experiencing the world, by opening up your world's vision so you actually could have more experience and knowledge and value you receive from this world. Because when I go into a conversation with someone else, I'm able to share my experience that I got when I spend time alone and outside of the time when I was being with my friend circle and being in the friend group. Because when you're with your friend, you obviously want to have fun, right? Like, why would you trying to be isolated when you're with your friend group? But when you have the opportunity to stay isolated, go spend time alone for a certain time, for a while, and trust me, you will learn so much more and then get on to the next level. Like, I always like to spend so much time alone by just enjoying reading and the peacefulness because I have no distraction around me. I have nothing to worry about, no liability, and just simply feeling myself is being the true inner self of myself, where I am like not getting distracted at all by this world. So I didn't care what was happening around me. I simply just focused on the thing that I needed to focus on, which lead to so much better efficiency. I realized simply by focusing one thing at a time, just such as spending time alone, I learned so much more out of it rather than me doing two things at a time and trying to multitask, where my attention span get deployed into different area that isn't necessary. And when I spend time alone, I also get to review my master plan as well, like I said before, where if I was at the age of 16, I could have reflected my whole entire age of year of 16 in my life, where from maybe the day I was born that I could have done something different and made a difference. And maybe I'll try it out next time. And a lot of great idea comes out when I am in the time where I'm in just in my self mode. I am in this locked in mode where I'm just in the silence by myself. I was isolated, and there's just so much idea that comes up in my mind, or I write it out, or I simply document it, and then look back on another time to see if this really works or is it even makes sense. Because sometimes your brain might have just think different, and you just come out with a bunch of different ideas that you probably would have never expected when you spend time alone. And because when you spend time alone, you're actually trying to reorganize everything you've been consuming and all the value you got, and essentially maybe turn into a product or some sort of service that you could have provided, or maybe some sort of business that you want to lead into, or maybe even just an opportunity that is just randomly pop up in your mind, then you go execute it. So simply spending time alone is just actually eliminate out all the distraction, and it's just better for you to stay focused. And with the next concept, it's kind of repeatedly what I said, but it's important to stop repeating making the mistake, because we make the mistake over. If we reflect to it, it's just gonna happen over again. And don't get me wrong here, mistakes are great. Sometimes having the availability or the opportunity to make a mistake, it leads to you seeing the other side of a thing, because in order to know the right answer, you're gonna have to know the wrong side of it. And by knowing the wrong side of it, it could lead to you finding the correct side of it. So like oftentimes you don't have to think of a mistake as such a bad thing, a negative stuff where it's like the end of the world. Rather, you could take this mistake like it's an opportunity for you to learn. You should be glad that you make this mistake early on in this time of your life rather than so much later on in your life, because I always encourage you to fail young and try as much thing as possible at a younger age, because of the experience eventually will build up for your future. And such as if you're talking about running business, someone that never had a business before starting up their business at age of 50, I will guarantee you it will not go so well comparing to someone that been having business running over again. Maybe this time certain thing, the marketing didn't work, the next time the financing didn't work, but the next time the product didn't work. They learn each time they make the mistake, and essentially by the time they get to age of 50, they start a business again. Their chance of succeeding is far much than someone that just simply starting off playing at the age of 50 as well. And when I say stop repeatedly making mistake, is stop making the same mistake. You could make mistake in different areas and view, and you learn in different perspective and different point. because there's a lot of pain point in us human, and we are just simply not perfect enough to do everything perfectly fine, which why there will be mistake occurring. And by looking at the detail and learning from the mistake, we eliminate that. And trust me, new mistake will come up as well. But guess what? With that new mistake in mind, you're probably into the next level, and you're probably having a mistake that is a much better problem than this small issue that you first face off. And just such as in the example of investing, in the early on beginning, I was making the same mistake where I was chasing a stock, chasing the value, trying to get the high, which is often make the mistake where you buy high, sell low because of emotional decision as well. But after over time at the year, maybe like 3 year path, and simply just learning it every single opportunity, and every single time I make the mistake, I begin to reflect on it. So I avoid making the same mistake. However, I still do make mistake sometime in trading rather than maybe rushing the process or waiting too long for the execution. But the results are much greater than what I have done maybe 2 years ago, because 2 years ago I was simply just making the mistake over again and just doing a thing what people call buy and pray. And I did not have any strategy in mind. I did not put in any effort into it. I didn't do any research off of it, or I simply just think that the decision I make at that time was 100% correct. Did not think about the risk sky, which was so bad that I wish I knew all of this way before at the age of 16. And last but not least, after all this great value that I've been shared, most importantly is to be responsible with everything and every action you take. And what I mean by responsible is that either in the action you do, or the stuff you take in, or the stuff you receive. For example, an action that you take might have led to hurting someone that you might have never knew, because sometimes the action may seem beneficial to you, but might be negatively harming someone. And just by not overthinking and just looking at the other side of an action, it sometimes may be a danger action that you're taking. And simply being responsible is just help me help you type of thing. For example, with collaboration and business working together, oftentimes people feel like, why should I split my cake with you when I could eat in it all by myself? But if you were able to be responsible enough, trust me, you will want to go into a maybe collaboration. At the end of the day, it's much better in a win-win than you winning it all. Just like in the early stage of Apple company going against Microsoft, IBM. But guess what? Eventually, they end up collaborating because they knew their goal isn't to beat each other, but their goal is to essentially make the world better and lead to more innovation. So you have to simply declare your final destination and final goal and look at this from a macro perspective and be responsible with the action that you're taking, because it might have just changed up this whole entire plan, or it might have just lead to unexpected stuff happening throughout this process. And when I said be responsible, it's also learning and educating yourself. Like, it's wrong for you, if you want to start a business, to live with your parent in the beginning of it, because it's a great strategy, a great way to save money and working toward forward and stuff. However, it's just not being responsible enough. If you just want to live with your parent and you just want to stick with them forever and just lay on the couch every day, wasting your time and doing absolutely nothing at all in terms of improving yourself. And simply when your parents get older, they don't have enough money to feed you, and everything just go downhill. So like simply being responsible, such as taking care of your health as well, because with all the money with the world, without health, that is nothing. It's just like this one famous quote once said, with all the money you got, but without time, money is worthless. But with all the time without any money, then your time is wasted as well. So you simply just have to be responsible with every single action that you're taking, because it may lead to a different result. And you just so important for you to think of the risk of the other side of this event that you're taking. And at the end of the day, I just hopefully that you gain the responsibility and just learning every single opportunity you get in this time frame, in this time during your life, and just simply avoiding all these mistakes and learn from it. Hopefully you gain the value by the age of 16. You know, Jim?